Baby Pokemon. Baby Pokemon are Pokemon that are the lowest of the evolution line. They were introduced in Generation 2 to give existing Pokemon a more diverse evolution line. Unlike the first stage Pokemon, baby Pokemon cannot breed. For example, Pokemon like Charmander can breed, a Pichu or Cleffa cannot. From Generation 3 to 8, in order to breed most of the baby Pokemon introduced after Generation 2, the parent in their evolutionary line must hold a specific incense before breeding, which provides a rationale for why those parent Pokemon could not produce these eggs in the previous generation. For example, Marill could not produce eggs of Azurill without the use of the sea incense. Without this incense, only a Marill will come out from the egg. This additional mechanic was later removed in Generation 9, and a baby Pokemon will always be produced, regardless of held items. Another interesting fact that was introduced in Generation 3 was the possibility of catching a specific baby Pokemon in the wild. That Pokemon is Wynot, and you can only encounter it at Mirage Island. I talked about this island in another video. You can find the link below. This feature later became stable from Generation 4 and beyond. Most baby Pokemon are cross-gen pre-evolutions. The only exceptions are Togepi, Riolu, and Toxel, as they were introduced alongside their evolved form. Do you know why baby Pokemon and breeding are important in Pokemon games? Well, for the egg moves, of course. You don't know what an egg move is? Well, let's just say that is a special move that a Pokemon is able to inherit through breeding, and that's the only way to have it. No other ways. I might talk about that in another video, so let's move on. Split evolutions. Split evolutions are Pokemon that are evolved from a Pokemon that can evolve in different ways by using different evolution methods. For example, a Gloom can evolve into a Vileplume using a Leaf Stone, and into a Blossom if using a Sunstone. Of course, different branch evolution of a Pokemon can have different types. Just take Scizor and Keyvor, the two branch evolutions of Scyther. One has the Steel type, and the other has the Rock type. If you want a better proof of that, just watch the evolutions. They are all different. In addition, the evolutions are a very nice example for another characteristic that is related to the branched evolutions. I am talking about the base stats difference. Every evolution uses the same numbers for its stats in different order. For example, these are the stats of a Vaporeon, and these are of a Flareon. If you pay attention, the total number of the stats are the same. They are only distributed differently. Okay, the stats change in evolutions may be too exaggerated. In some cases, the changes can be not that evident. Watch Vileplume and Blossom, for example. Normally, the difference is only on one or two stats. We can take Gardevoir and Gallade as examples. This split evolution is an interesting mechanic that lets the player have the option to change the role of a Pokemon in its team. If we take back the example of Gallade and Gardevoir, it is obvious that these two Pokemon should be played in a different way. Crossgen Evolutions. Crossgen Evolutions are not a real Pokemon category itself, in my opinion. I like to mention it because it can change, sometimes, the perspective of a Pokemon of the previous generations. Some regional forms also count as cross-gen evolutions. Take Alolan Raichu, for example. This category, so to speak, is created to give weak Pokemon a new chance to shine, or give unpopular Pokemon some love from the fans. One example of this is Primeape, a Pokemon who unfortunately hasn't been great in competition, but with its brand new evolution, Annihilate, it became one of the most broken Pokemon in the metagame. Then we got Dunsparce, an unpopular Pokemon that hasn't received any attention from Generation 2 until Generation 9, when it introduced Dudunsparce, its brand new evolution. Do you understand how crazy this is? I mean, this evolution is basically a meme, and the people love it? That's crazy! Okay, whatever, let's continue with the topic. Fossil Pokemon. Fossil Pokemon are Pokemon that originated from, well, fossils. I am not going to explain to you what a fossil is, so let's go straight to the point. In the Pokemon world, fossils of Pokemon are items which can be obtained and revived to bring the extinct Pokemon back, such as the old Amber for Aerodactyl and the Jaw fossil for Tyrantrum. In Generation 8, we got introduced to 4 new fossil Pokemon who can be revived in a completely different way to other generations. In this gen, players now got the option to combine 2 different fossils to revive a single new Pokemon, which was an interesting way to add variety to the Pokédex. The unique thing a fossil Pokemon has is their average base stat total of 495 to 521. Variants. Variant Pokemon, not to be confused with regional forms, are Pokemon who look different in appearance compared to Pokemon of the same species. This can be due to appearance, environment, gender, and more. Shiny Pokemon are one example of variant Pokemon, as they look different from their counterpart species. Just like the normal and shiny Sceptile. Then there's totem Pokemon like Alolan Marowak, who is larger than regular Alolan Marowaks. Variant Pokemon also exists in spin-offs and the Pokemon anime. One example are the clone Pokemon from the first Pokemon movie, with some of them having patterns on their body, or the Shadow Pokemon like Shadow Lugia and Mewtwo. Okay, this category was a bit boring and not that interesting, so let's move on. Alternate forms. Alternate forms are similar to variants with a slight difference. Alternate forms are forms that give certain Pokemon new traits, forms, and stats to give Pokemon different roles in battles or in the lore. The most iconic Pokemon with alternate forms is Deoxys. It has an attack, defense, or speed form, all having different stat distributions. There are alternate forms that change a Pokemon's type as well, such as Rotom's 5 different forms. There are even alternate forms that increase a Pokemon's stat, such as Ash Greninja, gaining increased attack and speed. The crowned form of Zacian and Zamazenta all fall in this category. You can see the boost in stat more evidently in this case. Now let's move to the most vast category of Pokemon. Regional forms. A regional form, also known as a regional variant, is an alternate form of a Pokemon species that is found in a specific region. These forms differ from those that we normally recognize as common forms, usually even to the point of having a different type. Some regional forms also have different evolutions to their counterparts from other regions. Apart from Meowth and Tauros, which have 2 and 3 respectively, each Pokemon with a regional form has only 1. They were introduced in Generation 7, and some of these Pokemon even got a chance to shine in competitions because of their new forms, such as Hisuian Samurott. As said before, regional form Pokemon can evolve into a completely different species, such as Paldean Wooper evolving into Clotsire. Regional forms have shown to work, and Pokemon fans have really appreciated the special treatment Game Freak has given to Pokemon that needed some love or some changes in its design. Convergent Species. Convergent species are completely different from regional forms. These Pokemon are known to be ecologically similar to previously discovered Pokemon. Take Wiglet, for example. Despite looking like a Diglett, it is completely unrelated to it. In fact, it's not a regional form, but an ecologically similar variant. If you are confused, I completely understand, but that is what Teacher Jacques said. So you better ask him for clarification. Back to the topic. Convergent species were introduced in Generation 9, and for now, there are 6 known convergent species out there: Toedscool, Wiglet, Poltergeist, and their evolutions. Mega Evolution. I already talked about Mega Evolutions in another video, so I'll go short this time. If you want to get more info, go check that video. I put the link in the description. Mega Evolution is a temporary form that occurs in a Pokemon battle. It was introduced in Generation 6 and became one of the most loved mechanics in the Pokemon games and its community. To be able to Mega Evolve a Pokemon, a trainer must obtain both a Keystone and a Megastone. It is also said that the trainer must have a deep bond between their Pokemon, but that is actually not that important. I'll also add Primal Reversions here since they're technically Mega Evolutions in a different way. Primal Reversion doesn't need a Keystone and is activated just when the Pokemon enters in battle. Mega Evolution can change a Pokemon's weight, height, ability, and even their type. But the most important aspect of the Mega Evolution is that the Mega Evolved Pokemon gains an extra 100 points to their stats. Now, after almost a decade of absence, Mega Evolution is returning to the main series, with Pokemon Legends ZA marking its return. Gigantamax. Gigantamax Pokemon are a special kind of Dynamax phenomenon. Dynamax is a temporary change that results in Pokemon getting bigger with higher HP. It was introduced in Generation 8 and was a core mechanic tied to the Pokemon lore of Sword and Shield. While in the Dynamax form, a Pokemon has access to a max move that is a very powerful move. Gigantamax form gives a special signature move that we can consider as a special max move. Gigantamax Pokemon only appear in max rate battles and are very rare to find. You could also feed your Pokemon the Max Soup, which can grant a Pokemon the ability to Gigantamax. Legendary Pokemon. Legendary Pokemon are rare, powerful Pokemon that play a vital part in the Pokemon universe. There are 2 types of Legendaries: Legendary Pokemon and Sub-Legendary Pokemon. Legendary Pokemon are the main Legendaries. They are the ones you mostly see on the box art of every main series Pokemon games, like Lugia, Groudon, or Zekrom. They have an average base stat total of 670 to 680, but some of them might differ from this parameter. Normally, legendary Pokemon do not evolve, but there is an exception. Cosmog and Cosmoem can evolve. Then we have sub-legendary Pokemon. They differ from the legendaries for the role in the Pokemon universe, but this is very subtle. The main difference is on the stats. They are weaker and usually have a base stat total of 570 to 600. These are Pokemon like Latios, Latias, Suicune, or one of the Regis. Contrary to popular belief, Ultrabeasts are not legendaries, and I'll explain more about them later on. Mythical Pokemon. Mythical Pokemon are even rarer than Legendaries Pokemon, as they aren't obtainable during gameplay. They are only obtained through event distributions, through mystery gifts, or by getting an item to trigger a special cutscene. Mythical Pokemon used to be limited time only, but starting with Generation 9, Mythical Pokemon can now be obtainable during normal gameplay. Mythical Pokemon have an average base stat total of 600 and are usually banned from VGC, though there have been some instances where they were allowed. Some of the most well-known Mythicals are Mew, Arceus, and Hoopa. Ultrabeast. Ultrabeast are a group of extra-dimensional Pokemon who originate from another dimension. They were introduced in Generation 7 and played a huge part in the story of Pokemon Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. Ultrabeast lives in Ultraspace and can sometimes enter the Pokemon world due to the formation of the Ultra Wormhole. Lunala and the other of the Light Trio can open up and travel through Ultra Wormholes since they have a connection to that place. Ultrabeasts have an average base stat total of 570, with some even going beyond that like Ultra Necrozma. Yes, Duskmane, Dawnwings, and Ultra Necrozma are classified as Ultrabeast in the TCG, though its base form isn't. Paradox Pokemon. Paradox Pokemon are a special group of Pokemon introduced in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. They were brought to the Paldea region through the use of a time machine. These Pokemon are split into two subgroups, Ancient Paradox Pokemon and Future Paradox Pokemon, with each of them resembling ancient or futuristic relatives of other Pokemon, like Screamtail or Iron Bundle, resembling a Jigglypuff and a Delibird respectively. Paradox Pokemon are genderless and are unable to breed or evolve since they are in the undiscovered egg group. Paradox Pokemon have an average base stat total of 570 and either have the ability Photosynthesis or Quark Drive. Koraidon and Miraidon are two special legendary Pokemon of this category. I already made a video about Pokemon in this category. I suggest you check it out, link in the description.